Perhaps you've just discovered Charlotte Mason's relational ideas, or perhaps you've been familiar with them for years and are just starting to think about high school. I think a lot of us resonate quickly with Charlotte Mason's ideas for younger students, but we begin to wonder, will they work for high school? Will this relational approach prepare my students for college and for a job and life afterwards? I'm Catherine Avery, and I am the Program and Services Coordinator here at the Charlotte Mason Institute. And joining me today to talk about these important questions is Carrie Forney. Carrie is a Charlotte Mason Institute board member and also works on the Albury High School curriculum team. She has been studying Charlotte Mason's ideas for over 20 years now and often speaks at CMI conferences and other events. She also homeschools her 5 children, and 4 of whom have graduated. The youngest is a junior in high school. And surprise, I am actually Carrie's oldest and her first Mason graduate. So, Mom, you obviously think that Charlotte Mason's ideas do work for high school, but can you talk a little bit more about why?
Yes. For one, Charlotte Mason's key idea that education is the science of relations and focused on students not just knowing, but caring about all the spheres of knowledge, most importantly, the knowledge of God. It's not limited to the early years. Growing, caring, learning, these are things we're all doing for the rest of our lives. And practically, a relational education seeks to work with the grain of a student's physical, moral, mental, and spiritual nature. So as students grow into the high school years, the spheres expand, but the principles are the same.
Yeah, and students in high school have longer attention spans and can read harder books. So morning lessons might be 4 or 5 hours rather than the 2 or 3 for younger students. But the principles are the same. We're still reading good books written by engaging authors and people who are passionate about their subjects. We're still narrating. We're still having a good mix of hands-on activities and reading and writing, just like the younger years. But can you say a little bit more about how Charlotte Mason's relational practices continue to grow and develop in high school? Because I think one of the things that makes people worried about whether this relational approach will work in high school is that we don't always talk about how the curriculum and methods change and develop and expand in high school years.
Yes. So I like to think of a relational education as a funnel. Take narration. Students start by orally narrating, telling back what they hear. And then as they gain facility with writing, they begin to tell back in writing as well. Narration helps them integrate what they read. Mason calls it the act of knowing. But it also helps them develop a facility with words. Subjects like grammar, dictation, poetry, recitation, and well-written books across the curriculum help them start to pay attention to how words sound and how they function, and notice the different ways that we can use them. And as they continue to gain fluency in writing, we build off of Mason's quote in School Education, page 180, where she says that there are many ways to use books and process what is read. So students start learning how to write plays, or research and cite sources, compose essays, make summaries, write poetry, and more. But all of these things at the top of the funnel are rooted in that beginning practice of oral narration, which continues all the way along, which is why students who come into a relational education later on find it really valuable to ease into new habits by practicing the skill of oral narration and basic written narration first, before adding on the other things as well. So all the subjects have a funnel, if you will, that opens and expands as the students grow and their relationship with these different subjects grow. But to shift gears a bit, let's talk about whether a relational education really prepares high school students for life. How have you seen Charlotte Mason's ideas affect you since graduation?
Yeah, I think that Charlotte Mason's ideas have continued to impact me in so many ways since graduating. But here's just a few thoughts. So the first year after high school, I was actually, well, as you know, obviously, I was an international student in China, and I was learning Mandarin, which I had never studied before. And I was trying to memorize all these characters, which were so different than the letters and the phonetic sounding out of words that I had learned with Spanish in high school and obviously English. And I realized one day that the only way I could memorize these characters was by doing picture study on them. So who knew? Mason's ideas about picture study help you learn Mandarin. Something else I really appreciated was that in college, my Mason education and that background helped me learn to do schoolwork because of the intrinsic value of a subject rather than just for a grade. Of course, that doesn't mean I always had the perfect motives in high school or in college, but having that experience of a model that wasn't inherently and intrinsically comparing me to other people or to a letter or a grade really helped me to continue to work in my classes in college for real personal knowledge and not just status or that high grade or letter. And then I think even stepping back one step further, I think that my Mason education has helped me have a vision for a full life. I think especially in navigating a world that is so focused on technology and that is so absorbed in our screens and our phones. It's not something I live into perfectly, obviously, every day, but being exposed to so many different subjects and encouraged to care about so many things growing up helps me now when I'm tired at the end of the day to see and choose the options to read a book or to go outside, to plant a garden, which, by the way, my tulips are blooming, and to start a class or to try a new project. I think that is helping to choose things that are constructive and life-giving rather than just defaulting to mindlessly scrolling on my phone or binge watching a TV show. And not to say that technology is always bad, but or that I don't feel the pull of technology. But I think that experience of growing up outdoors with books and that broad feast of ideas gives me now an alternate goal to aim for and helps me to live intentionally rather than just defaulting to what our culture is constantly putting in front of us. So Mason's philosophy really connects to so many things that I care about now, and we could talk about this for a long time. But let's talk about some more of the practical things. A lot of people are worried about and ask questions about transcripts. Do you think that a Charlotte Mason education or relational approach to education works in some of these, just the practical details of making a transcript?
Yes, it does. And the main thing here to remember is that all of the subjects of a relational education fit easily into the main subjects most colleges are looking for in a transcript, right? So we have math, science, history, English, fine arts, etc. Just because the methods might look different on the day-to-day, that does not change the basic subject areas of knowledge, which is what the transcript is looking for. So we've linked a few other transcript resources and tips below. But before we end, let's talk about socialization and navigating high school when you're following a method that might not be the same as others around you. Depending on the availability of a school or a co-op with others using Mason's relational approach, if you're educating at home, it could feel pretty lonely as a parent or a student.
Yeah, and I remember being a high school student and wondering why we were doing what we were doing and feeling a bit insecure that I wasn't doing the mountains of homework late at night, like some of my friends would talk about. And I think it really made a difference to me that you explained the whys behind what we were doing and just the rationale behind all the different things you were asking me to do. I think it helped me to have confidence in the method and to buy into it myself personally, rather than just viewing it as something you were doing to me. Yeah, and I think even in a setting where someone has others that are practicing this relational approach with them, where they're in a community, I think it's still really valuable to explain the whys behind the method because it's about so much more than school. It's about who we are and how we learn.
Yeah. And as we explain the methods, it helps give us both a broader perspective on education as a life, right? It's not about just finishing the next class or high school or college or getting a job. Education's not utilitarian in that way, right? This isn't being done to you, but by you. And this is how we all grow as people. So as you quickly come to realize both educators and students are unique people and are on the same path of learning and growing. And this creates a camaraderie that lasts for a lifetime.
Yeah, I agree. And as we end, I wanted to mention that you can find out more about the Alvieri High School program on our website, and you can hear more from Carrie or Mom on our YouTube channel with our book previews. And to close, I just wanted to encourage all of you listening. I'm only one Mason graduate. I'm only one perspective, and every student is different. But I really feel like I have been given a gift in my education. And I really believe that you, as home and classroom educators, are giving your students a gift as well. CMI's and Alvieri's whole goal is to equip you and come alongside you as you work to bless your students in this way. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.